Realization without speaking or thought, the sixth method. One might say that if the natural state exists, then somewhere it must appear, but nothing appears, so therefore the natural state does not exist. It is always without a trace, in past, present, or future, but even though the natural state does not appear, it is always there. This awareness is of a sort that you can never catch by thought, and you cannot name it or show it by letters. If you try to show it by sounds or signs, you never go exactly to the nature of this awareness. Whatever you do to study or check in this way, you will be like a dumb man who tastes sugar. He can taste, but he cannot explain to others how the flavor tastes. In the same way, this nature cannot be thought and cannot be captured by words. When you understand this, then you realize the natural state without speaking or thought. The natural state does not exist because it is not material, the seventh method. The natural state does not exist either because there is no method to remove it. It cannot both exist and not exist. Neither is the natural state beyond existence and not in existence. There is no place for it to rest. Therefore, the nature of mind is completely beyond limits. Commentary. Lopon comments that Tsongkhapa's criticism of Dzogchen was based on the notion that all Dzogchenpas do is ask about the nature of mind and find that mind has no color or size or material. According to him, that is the Dzogchen view. But this criticism is mistaken, for this is the view of the Vipassana schools. As was mentioned in Note 11, Dzogchen stresses the difference between the mind and the nature of mind. My nature of mind and your nature of mind are different. There are as many natures of mind as there are sentient beings. When someone takes a rainbow body, everyone else is left the same. Just as each sentient being has a different body, so they also have different minds, but the quality of all their minds is the same. The mind is completely individual, but its qualities are common to all. One can only study one's own nature, even though the qualities you discover may be the same for all beings. If you understand this, you understand the great limitless mind that is beyond the four limits. Thus you have nothing to grasp at. If you grasp at things, you must bind them by one of the four limits. The realization that is beyond thought and without name, the eighth method. In the first place, the natural state is completely beyond thought and the objects of thought. It is in no way an object of thought. You cannot show it by example. Whatever you do, you can do nothing with this. However, when you check back to the source of thoughts, you cannot find anything. You must come back to the nature of mind itself. It is not separate from object and subject, nor from names, nor can any thought seize its nature. When you understand this without thinking, you realize the mind without name, that is beyond thoughts. The realization of the spontaneous mind without doing, the ninth method. Even if you do not search or study anything, the natural state is always with you from the limitless beginning. There is nothing to lose and nothing to find. If you search in yourself, can you find it? Therefore you should not speak about searching for the nature of mind. From the beginning, it was always with you and never separate from you. No other beings can see the nature of your mind. It is always self-originated. When you realize this, you have realized the naked basic Dharmakaya. Commentary. Lopon comments that these are existence, non-existence, both or neither. The Dzogchen view. Checking where the natural state comes from, where it stays and where it goes. In this section, you first check where does the natural state come from and who is coming. The method to check this is, when a thought comes without planning, to ask the question whether it comes from existence or non-existence. Look into where it comes from. If you think it comes from existence and the external realms, say from the earth, mountains, or houses, or from the internal realms inside the body or brains, then check each possibility individually. Check them and go back to these items. If you do this, where can you find the source? Secondly, you might think it is coming from the empty sky, but if so, then where is the source in the sky? This source must be one of the elements. But if you look at air, fire, earth, or water, you cannot find your thoughts there. If you check in this way, you still cannot find where they come from. The natural state is like a wind that comes suddenly from nowhere. So just look to the natural state, whether it is something material, whether it has color, what it looks like. Can you find out anything about it? Nothing can be found. Then suddenly you have lost both subject and object. That is called the endless view. It is the basic Dharmakaya for the base, the path Dharmakaya for the path, and for the fruit the final Dharmakaya. When you understand this nature, you understand the nature of the Dharmakaya. Where does it stay, and who stays there? We must check these things. If you think that the natural state exists, then where is it right now? If you take all the material things and check them, things go back to the atoms and finally disappear like the sky. You cannot find the place where they reside. Commentary. That means that you realize it without grasping. It is a method for introduction, a preliminary practice, not the final Dzogchen view. And if you cannot find the place where they stay, who stays there? What remains is a very bright clearness that will stay with you. If you try to recognize who is staying in both realms, you cannot find anything, neither in the object side nor in the subject side. Without thinking or speaking, it is the presence of brightness and clarity. The presence is very clear. According to the path, it is called the self-brightness of practicing, and according to the fruit, it is called the unstoppable Sambhogakaya. Where does it go, and who goes there? After a little while, you will have to think back and to ask where the thoughts go. If you look externally, you cannot find their destination. Everything just disappears. Even if you were to find something, you would have to ask, who is going? When you try to find out, everything disappears. It is self-disappearing. It is self-purified. You did not do anything but delusion was purified. You do not try to purify, nor do you do anything with the pure perceptions. Everything spontaneously appears and is self-liberating into emptiness. According to the path that is called without trace of acting, and according to the fruit, the inseparable Nirmanakaya. You must look hard to where the thoughts are going. Just as a wind disappears, they disappear into space. They are self-liberated and go into self-liberation. When you have this experience, you see the ungrasping Nirmanakaya. Usually we think that it is my mind that is always thinking, but when you ask where it comes from, where it goes, and where it stays, you cannot find any place. That is called the collapse of the house of the mind. When you realize this, you reach the great nature and selflessness without end, Chadral Chenpo. When you come to this nature, there is no need to check or do anything. There is no action, and there is nothing to do. This is the unification of brightness and emptiness, and is the great nature of Dzogpa Chenpo. When you realize this, it is called the coming to direct recognition of the natural state. So ends the preliminary practice. Commentary. Lopon comments that you must not go on beyond this point unless the realization it describes has been reached, without checking object or any grasping. This is bright clarity and emptiness united. You must not even grasp for the unification in itself. Only when this has been reached can the practices that follow bear fruit. There must be a clear presence with no grasping. That is the fruit of the preliminary practice. Book 2, The Practice of Trekcho. Tibetan Text 20b, line 5. Essential teachings for the practice. First of all, we should get into the right state for the essential ripening of the mind. For this purpose, it is necessary to receive the initiation. However, if you come through this preliminary practice, you will receive initiation with the practice itself. Leading to the essential teachings, there are two subdivisions. The first division explains the context of the teachings, and the second teachings in detail the practice. Commentary. Lopon comments that when you receive initiation, it is to show you the natural state. Afterward, you can go check whether you received anything by seeing whether you then perfectly understand the natural state. However, if you do the preliminary practices, you will see the natural state, so that is the initiation in itself. The context. This section begins with a note from the Namdak. It says that in Dzogchen there are 3 types of wrong teachings. The first are wrong teachings that are incorporated into Dzogchen. The second are misinterpretations of the teaching. And the third category are the wrong teachings that are automatically stopped. For example, the way the mistaken teachings have been incorporated into Dzogchen is by putting the views of the 8 lower vehicles into the teachings. But according to the Dzogchen view, you do not need to see that the 8 views are negative. They are spontaneously dissolved into it. Quote from the Yetri Tassel, in the ultimate Dzogchen view, you do not need to remove anything, you do not need to grasp, for Dzogchen does not follow the traces of the path and fruit of the stages. All grasping to external or internal view is liberated by itself. It is beyond the subject-object, obtaining the fruit or removing of defects. This view is the object of the best knowledge of the practitioner. The second mistaken view is to always wish and hope for every bright clearness or emptiness, strongly grasping for many things, holding and wishing. Commentary. This text is like the last category. If it is taught correctly, misunderstandings are automatically stopped, and examples of this are given in the text that follows. It is said that they have to be removed. The Dzogchen view is beyond these ways. It is the best and has to be practiced. But this view is itself mistaken, because in thinking that the other ways are negative and Dzogchen is the best view, you are keeping 2 sides, the negative side and the positive side. But Dzogchen has no sides. If you are still grasping for the 2 sides, you have not achieved the Dzogchen view. If you remain in the liberated state, you do not need to keep or reject anything. It is bounded by wishing. That is also not good Dzogchen practice. If one is asked what one's view is, one answers without negative or positive. Things should be left as they are. Then all bindings and obscurations are liberated by themselves. This view is beyond the decision of practicing and meditating, without doing anything, without any attempt to change your nature. Just let it go on continuously. Then all the negative side and all the positive side is dissolved into its nature. There is no wrong view. For example, if a flood comes from the mountains, it washes all the shrubs and brushes and trees down to the valley. It is in this manner. Now, in this Dzogchen text, we have 3 systems of teaching the pupils. One of these is called the system of teaching, the second, the system of direct introduction, and the third, the traveler who crosses mountains and, having mistaken his way, is then helped to find the right path. If you ask which system is being taught here, it is the first system. What is the second system? It is to introduce Trekchub and Togel directly. The third system means to give gradual teachings. This teaching is of the first type because all teachings are contained in this one. The students that do not have the highest capacity must be taught gradually in self-awareness so as to remove slowly the obscurances of thoughts and thus move from samsara. This method I have already taught in the text Dzogchenpo Kasum Rangshar. The teaching here is for the practitioners of best capacity. So how is it taught? The manner of teaching is suddenly to introduce everything in a moment like a lightning strike. Commentary. Especially Bardo and Phawa teachings, which are given in Book 4 of this text. In this work, Shardza collected many quotations from different sources on Trekcho, Togel, and Dark Retreat, etc. The basis of it is naturally liberated from the beginning. To this base you add nothing but are introduced directly to it so that you understand it fully. Details of the practice. The practitioner of best capacity does not need to meditate or contemplate, but needs to make a decision. By this firm decision, he or she is liberated. This is the method of the Trekcho system. By the teachings of Tsegel, one reaches the fulfillment of the visions of the three kayas, and so achieves the rainbow body at the end of the lifetime. The teachings of Trekcho. There are two subdivisions according to two capacities of pupils. For the lower division, there is a quote from the medium book of the Zhangzang Nyingyu, the Dringpo Sorsag. The visions are all introduced into the mind. The mind is introduced to the emptiness, and the emptiness is introduced to the clear light. The clear light is introduced to the unification, and the unification is introduced to the great bliss. The reason for this is that when you introduce the visions to the mind, this causes the sensation of the sense that appearances are self-sustaining. When you introduce the mind to emptiness, that causes the sensation of the ignorant thoughts that grasp after truth. Commentary. Buddhahood is then self-achieved. During this life you achieve the base, and so you feel very safe and secure. You live with the confidence of a tulku for whom samsara has no fears. The book of collected experiences of practitioners called colloquially the Nyangyu, introduced means shown directly. When you directly show the clear light to emptiness, that causes the sensation of the cessation of the misunderstanding of your nature. And when you show the unification to the clear light, that is, the unification of awareness and nature. When you directly show the great bliss to the unification, you realize the naked nature of emptiness and awareness without being born, stopping, or resting in any place. Now for the first system of teaching, the direct showing. One needs the personal advice of the teacher in this manner. The vision itself is not mind, and the mind is neither form nor vision. If you ask what the mind is, you must understand that all the visions come from karmic traces. Because the mind has kept various karmic traces, they can be awakened, and so, by the cause of the traces of previous actions, the visions appear. Even though these visions appear, they have no inherent existence. Commentary. Lopon comments that if you grasp after the emptiness, it is not right. If you grasp after awareness, that is not right. And even if you grasp after unification, it is not right. The real Dzogchen nature is unification, but unification is a state of being, not an object of knowledge. Like the Chittamatra mind-only system, the Lopon comments that this is a reference to the Chittamatra view of the vision of the elements. Even though things seem to happen when we are awake, as if they were permanent and real alterations to the world, they are still karmic traces. Nothing has happened in the absolute sense. All vision is like a dream. In a dream, a vision is just a vision to the mind, even though whatever appears looks like real material to the dreamer. It is just the same when we are awake. All appearances come from the karmic traces. They all come to the mind. Apart from the mind, nothing exists at all. The difference between dreaming and awakening is just time, and that is all. It is just in time, and that is all. The direct introduction according to Semje. The basic nature of the natural state, bodhicitta, is the base of all reflections. It is like an ocean. All kinds of reflections can appear in it. Thus the ocean equally reflects all images, the sun, the moon, and the stars. That you must know. From the point of view of bodhicitta, the natural state, you cannot explain the difference between the base, the energy, or the reflections. That is because its nature is emptiness, i.e. the natural state, and to emptiness there is no distinction between them. For example, in the ocean, the clearness of the water, energy, and the reflections in it are not different from the water. They appear, but they are not beyond the water. If you look from the point of view of the reflections, i.e. individual things, there is no contradiction either. From that perspective, you can see that the ocean and its clarity and reflections are distinct from one another. However, according to the natural state, none of the reflections has a real base. There is no inherent existence in them. A quote from Logyadang Drawai Dampo: "In this connection there is no speaking about emptiness and vision. Both emptiness and vision have no base. Therefore the Semji system is only for leading the followers of lowest capacity into Dzogchen, and it is also called the Great Seal, Mahamudra." Commentary. The energy to reflect, Sol, is a property of the ocean, so the reflections, Rolpa, and the energy are united in its nature, Gji. Sometimes only two natures are used, the base and Gji, the base, and Sol, reflections. These two referring respectively to the capacity to take reflections, subject side, and the reflections themselves, object side. The next Chag tree by Trugal Yungdrung and his followers was accepted as the highest teaching, but this is not the case. It cannot be compared with the highest teaching any more than the earth can be compared with the sky. Commentary. You cannot say the natural state is empty or has reflections or whatever. Like water, which is also wet, it is both things at once. Neither term captures this reality, which is beyond words. You can't say it is empty because it is not graspable. If you say that it is empty, you try to enter the state whilst grasping the concept of emptiness. The real fact is beyond all concepts. This is a reference to the Mahamudra system. Semji is the aspect of Dzogchen that most stresses the emptiness, and so the author here says that it is similar to Mahamudra. Mahamudra emphasizes and grasps emptiness, but her nature is left as it is, without trying to act upon it, without meditating, visualizing, or contemplating. Lopon comments that Semje, Longje, and Mengaje are all aspects of Dzogchen because they recognize as the final truth the unification of awareness and emptiness. Semje emphasizes more the emptiness side, and Longje the awareness, but both are unified, which is the essence of the Dzogchen view, the union of emptiness and awareness. Mahamudra is the union of emptiness and bliss, and as Tsongkhapa explained very clearly, the emptiness referred to is that of the Madhyamika view. This is not the view of emptiness referred to in Dzogchen. Many schools have terms and propositions which are very similar to those of Dzogchen, and this has led to some confusion when this label has been applied to other systems. For example, Shakya Pandita was very explicit in condemning Dzogchen as not being a Buddhist view at all. All the Dzogchen texts make special mention of the need to separate out all the other views in order to make clear the meaning of the terms in the context of Dzogchen alone. At the very beginning you must know the other views, but they are to be discarded as this is the highest and best vehicle. Many Dzogchen teachers at present are teaching that Mahamudra and Madhyamika and Dzogchen views are not different, but this is not found in the literature at all. The direct introduction according to Mengaje. For the best practitioners, there is a second direct introduction. They can be liberated just after being shown directly. This instruction is given in two subdivisions. The first is the direct introduction, and the second concerns the decision to enter into the great non-action. The direct introduction. Now, concerning the direct introduction, there are three methods of teaching. The first is to comment on the importance, the second is to tie up, and the third is to bind. The first method, the comment on the importance. Here there are two methods, to show directly the root awareness and to show the view, practice, action, and fruit. To show directly the root awareness, there are three descriptions of awareness, Rigpa. The first is encompassing awareness, the second is awareness of thinking, and the third is primordial awareness. The first means the awareness of the Buddha who encompasses all beings. The second is that of some of the schools of meditation like Vipassana, insight, where awareness is practiced in meditation. There, if you do not practice it, you do not see the awareness, and sometimes it is clear and sometimes not. The third is according to this view. It is the real awareness of Dzogchen. Commentary. Lopon comments that Trungyel Yungdrung was the author of a creed in the 15 sessions, which was composed in the 11th century. Shardza is criticizing this text because it is mainly Semji. It is always there whether you are practicing meditation or not, or whether you realize it or not. Whether you know it or not does not matter. What follows below is to show you this awareness directly. The view, practice, action, and fruit. First of all, sit down in the 7-point posture. Then the master calls to the student and says, "O good child, is there any watcher or thing that is watched? And to where or not? You cannot find any object to be watched, or a watcher who watches it. At that moment everything goes as the sky. Do not change or do anything. That nature is inexpressible. At that moment there are no names or concepts of clarity, emptiness, or unification. You cannot show this by example. You cannot check it or recognize it by thoughts. You are unable to remove it, yet it never goes away. There is no root. It is empty. While you are in this state, clarity is there without ceasing, non-stop, and purified. The clarity is the self-created clarity, and there is no antidote. It will always be in bliss, always naked. It cannot be deluded. You can't say what you have seen, but it is always bright." Commentary. Lopon comments that the third type of awareness is with you whether you know it or not, but normal sentient beings are not aware of this, a part of their nature. This can best be explained like a little story. There was once an old lady who had a lump of gold lying on the floor of her thatched cottage. One day a prince came and saw the gold, and he asked the lady, "Why are you so poor?" The old lady answered that she was just a poor peasant. The prince pointed out that a treasure was there, since the old woman had not recognized the riches that were hers. Only when the prince, the teacher, came did the old lady, sentient being, see the riches, the natural state. Of course, the gold was unaffected whether the old lady saw it or not. The 7-point posture is to sit with crossed legs, hands in equipoise, spine straight, neck bent, eyes open, mouth open, tongue on palate. Its nature is without ceasing. It is the inexpressible nature and unremovable wisdom. There is no subject, for the visions are just there. Without thoughts, clarity is there. Without distinguishing subject and object, wisdom is there. This is the wisdom without object or subject, without substance. It is the great secret path of the great perfection, the heart blood of the Dakinis, and is the great Drenpanamka. It is also the essential teaching of Rigpa Rangshar. Have you mentioned? You realized it. Wonderful. The second method, to tie up. This is given in 4 sections: the view, the practice, the activities, and the fruit. The view of tying up. This means that all the views are tied up in emptiness because all the visions in mind are kept without change or trying to change them. Everything comes as it is. Without doing anything and with no delusions, you can see clearly. The vision comes suddenly like the flash made when lightning strikes. It is called the vision that comes as suddenly as lightning comes down. A quotation from the text Namdak Dzogchen. Just now these visions and minds are all seen without any covering, very brightly and clearly. They come without planning, therefore they are sudden. They are self-originated, therefore they are called lightning. All the visions are without stopping and without inventing. They come spontaneously, and everything is self-originated. This is why they are said to be like lightning. Commentary. Drenpanamka was a Mahasiddha who was the father of Guru Padmasambhava according to Bon history. He was a great reformer and wrote many commentaries. Rigpa Rangshar is the secret name of Shardza Tashi Gyaltsen. He is also known by the name of Drimen Yingpo. The first of the 4 ways to tie up with views. The practice and activities for tying up. All the practice is aimed at seeing directly with full awareness. This is because when the thoughts suddenly arise, just at that moment they are self-liberated. If you are aware of them, that is called directly hit. Quoting from the text as above, thoughts arise suddenly. There is no certainty as to where they are coming from. Therefore, it is directly hit. Whatever appears is only self-originated. Thus, ignorance has no place to hide, and it is called directly hit. It is clearly seen how awareness and normal vision are connected, and this is called directly hit. When awareness and vision are left as they are without any change, that is called directly hit. Once you have understood these methods, there is nothing beyond them, nothing to meditate on. That is called directly hit. Now all the activities are tied up with the self-originated wisdom that comes naturally. Whenever you perform any of the 4 activities without trying to plan or change anything, but simply leaving everything as it is, that is called the spontaneously originated wisdom. From the same text, another quote, "Nothing is being stopped and everything appears naturally. It comes automatically. Nothing is being done particularly. This is why it is said that everything is coming automatically. If you act normally, there is nothing wrong. Whatever you do, everything is the reflection of emptiness, and therefore it is the automatically originated appearance." Commentary. Lopon comments that while you are in awareness, when thoughts arise, then they are self-liberated. If you are not in awareness, then the thoughts can lead you. The 4 activities are eating, sleeping, sitting, defecating, so at all times you should keep the natural state. There is nothing to remove, collect, or desire, therefore it is automatically originated. Everything comes into the emptiness, and there is nothing to agree or disagree with. Therefore everything is automatically originated. All the time your body, speech, and mind are left as they are. There are no antidotes. That is the looseness without binding and tightness. It is a happy mind. The fruit of tying up. All the fruits are tied to the 3 bodies that are self-originated, because whatever appears and whatever comes, it is, though it does not matter, good or bad. This is because thought is self-originated and from the natural state, and that is called the fruit self-originated from the 3 bodies. Quoting from the same text, the self-originated Dharmakaya is like the sky. The Sambhogakaya is self-originated like the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and winds. The Nirmanakaya is self-originated as the 6 realms of beings. Wisdoms are self-originated as the 5 poisons of the emotions. All things self-originate naturally from awareness and are all connected with awareness. Therefore, there is nothing left to remove or to tie up with practicing. No one might ask, if everything is self-originated and goes back to the natural state, then what is this samsara that we are living in? Do you think this is the final truth and that there are not defilements? What you've said is contradictory. The Dzogchen view replies that there is nothing contradictory in this statement, because to the Dzogchen practitioner, everything is self-originated. In this natural state, there is no antidote to apply, for there is no negatives, there is nothing to be removed. This is proven by the following quote from the Melong Gudu Oselgi Gyu. "The view is like lightning that comes from the sky. No one can stop it. The practice of meditation is like the sun shining in the sky. All the darkness naturally disappears. When a flood comes from the mountain, it washes all the rocks and trees and shrubs down the valley. That is like the activity. When you have found the wishing jewel, your wishes are perfectly fulfilled. That is the fruit." The 3rd method, the binding. This is again described in 4 sections: view, meditation, activities, and fruit. All of these are bound into normal vision, which has no base. It is just left as it is. That is the binding. Concluding summary. The conclusion is that everything is awareness and emptiness. That is the single point. Everything is in this. There is nothing to do with body, speech, and mind. This view ties up all the ends. All samsara and nirvana are liberated without doing anything. This is the natural unification which is unborn and unending, without doing anything. You just leave it as it is. That is to tie up with the 5 points. Commentary. The 5 points are: 1. To stop. 2. To put into one single point, 3. To tie up without doing anything, and 4. To liberate all samsara and nirvana, and 5. That everything is unified ceaselessly into the unified natural state. The decision to enter into the great non-action. Decisions without action have 3 subdivisions. The first is in general to remove all faults. The second is to explain what the decision without action means. And the third is to decide to practice without practicing. As a general introduction, someone may challenge the view by asking, if, as you say, everything is self-liberated, whether you understand or not, and samsara and nirvana are self-liberated for all time, past and future, then surely you do not need to do anything. It seems that you hold the wrong view that there is nothing to do. In reply, one says that if one decides to enter the great acting without action, then there are 12 methods of acting. If one does more than these, one is doing too much, and one will circulate in samsara even more deeply. A quote from the Trogyal Namkyang Nyenpai Yu accompanies this point. If you are doing too much, you cannot stay in the real truth. If you take on many activities, that means you are following the path of evil. Therefore, remain loosely and without delusion in the self-liberating path without action. But when some may say, surely it is this, not still the mistaken view that you don't need to do anything because everything is self-liberated. One replies, yes, this is the case, but it is neither mistaken nor contradictory. I do not need to do a thing more. Now all visions are helpful and without fault. Truly, once you are in the natural state, every action is like practicing the accumulation of merits. Commentary. These 12 are described in the sections that follow as the 4 achievements, the 3 capacities of understanding, and the 5 points of the decision without action. The decision without action. The second subdivision explains in detail the nature without action. It has 3 parts. First of all, there are the 4 achievements. Then there are the 3 capacities of understanding. And finally, there is the decision without action, which has 5 points. The 4 achievements, these are 1. To be able to do the opposite of what one thinks is the right action. 2. When one has achieved this capacity of acting without any concept of good or bad, it does not matter if one is criticized or not. Everything is equal. 3. The person who has achieved this capacity is never involved in actions or thoughts. Commentary. Lopon comments that these are descriptions of the practitioner who has the capacity to achieve Buddhahood. If you do not fully understand the natural state, then all practices such as reciting mantras, etc., are seen as effort. But when you fully understand that state, then none of these actions are important any longer. Thus you are able to do things in the opposite way. A similar point was made by Longchenpa. When you don't understand the natural state, you must try to accumulate merits and practice bodhicitta and confession, etc. But the opposition spoken of here is not opposition in the sense of adopting the views of the heretic schools or even that of an opponent. It means that once one is continuously in the natural state, one is not deluded. So whether one recites or practices visualization or whatever, it does not matter. It is like being in space. Whether you paint black or white on space, it leaves no trace. When you first begin to hear these teachings, this can be misleading, as it is valid only for the person who can remain undisturbed and not distracted in the natural state. Such freedom is the result. 4. If one has achieved this capacity is criticized, that person does not modify his or her view. One is not deluded by others. These are the 4 achievements of the person who has achieved the natural state. The 3 capacities of understanding. These are 1. Of course, the practitioners who have achieved this capacity will have clairvoyance, but they do not care for these signs, even if the Dharmakaya appears very brightly in front of them. They have fully understood that everything is part of their nature, so they are neither happy nor sad to see this. That is the first sign that no one can remove the practitioner from his or her nature. 2. Of course, even if sickness and miseries come, the practitioners do not care. If the king of hell comes and puts molten metal in their mouths, if the demons come to take them away, they know that these appearances are not separate from their own nature, so no one can make the practitioner afraid. That is the sign that he or she will not fall down. Commentary. Lopon comments that if you don't do anything, it does not matter from the point of view of emptiness. Of course, it is different from the point of view of the practitioner. These differences are not different at source, so there are not two truths. The practitioner is not, after all, the source. There is only one source. But to one who is grasping, there is a limited point of view. Many teachings seem very similar to Dzogchen, but all teachings are bounded by thought. If you go back to their origin, there are always precepts that say this is the right way and this is the wrong way. Once you have this background, you are bounded by thoughts. But Dzogchen has no background. This is difficult to explain, as everything Dzogchen says is for the practitioner with capacity. This difference of view is very important to understand. 3. Of course, practitioners can spontaneously give many teachings without study, as the teachings will be known spontaneously by the power of their understanding. Thus they will have a good reputation and so achieve power and knowledge to conquer their critics. They do not care, even if they see the Sambhogakaya or see Tonpa Shenrab teaching under his umbrella. They never change from their nature. They know that everything is not different from their nature, so they do not follow good or bad. That is the sign of the capacity of the practice. The practitioners will never be stopped, nor will they go back from their nature. Practitioners have no hope to achieve nirvana, nor are they frightened to fall down to samsara. They do not wish to do good things. Those practitioners who have this capacity do not doubt any longer. But if a practitioner is still doubtful, or to whether he or she is acting in the right way or not, or whether he or she has got the right sign or not, then that person has not yet achieved this capacity. He or she will continue to circulate in samsara. Commentary. Lopon comments that when other Buddhist schools hear these teachings, they have been very upset in the past and have said that Dzogchen is not Buddhism at all. But Dzogchen is not like the view of Indian or Western materialist philosophy, in which the actions in which the life have no ultimate consequence, because body and mind have the same nature. The view that they are born together, so it doesn't matter whether you perform good or bad actions, because finally they both go to ashes and no trace is left. The natural state is not material at all. After all, as is continuously stated in the text, where can you find it? The decision without action. Now comes the third part. The decision without action, which has 5 subdivisions. They are: 1. Activity cannot bring Buddhahood because all activities are material and therefore impermanent. Nature and final truth are like the sky. No activity can bring emptiness. Therefore just decide to enter the great nature without action. A quote from the Trodol Namkyang Genpa Gyu: if anyone enters the nature without action, whether that being is a god or a human, or in any one of the 6 realms, the nature of mind will always be purified spontaneously into natural truth. And whoever wants to get into this nature should not make any kind of action, only remain in the final truth. There are no obscurations or negativity in the natural state. From the beginning, everything is liberated into the realms of great bliss of self-clarity. Therefore, there is no need to apply antidotes. A quote from Kunzang Dewai Lung: from the highest mandalas of Buddhas down to the ground, including all the external and internally existent things, nothing is beyond the great bliss. Therefore, everything is not far from Buddhahood. Whatever appears or comes, everything is the reflection of wisdom. Everything is like an ornament of the natural state and is self-liberated. All the visions appear as wisdom, therefore one must decide to enter the path of the equal taste. A quote from the Desha Gonpa Dupai. Whatever your thoughts are doing, rising or moving, the natural state and awareness has never been damaged by them. Everything spontaneously exists. That is the great fruit of the self-pure liberation. It is also the pure clarity wisdom. All the various visions are like reflections of the natural state. 4. All the existences that belong to samsara and nirvana are reflections that come from the natural state. All of them will be liberated into the natural state. Just at the moment when they are reflected, they are ready to be liberated. There is no need to try to liberate them. Therefore decide to enter the self-liberation. A quote from the 10th chapter of the text above. This is the automatic cutting off of the mistakes or obscurations. From the beginning it is beyond the views of nihilism and eternalism. Here nothing is said about them, for all are naturally liberated into the pure great naturally liberated. 5. From the standpoint of the natural state, whether you understand this natural self-awareness or not does not affect it. It is completely beyond the ends of samsara and nirvana. If you do not realize the natural state never goes bad. Therefore its nature is completely beyond samsara. Commentary. This text has unfortunately been lost in the massive destruction following the Chinese invasion of Tibet. 28. Lopon comments that this means it has no end at all and is beyond concept. The Dzogchen nature has no end and no beginning. From an individual point of view, nirvana might be seen as having a beginning. However, for the practitioner must become a Buddha. But in this teaching, all things are Buddha, equal. It is liberated beyond the end of samsara. If you try to search or to look, you have only to understand a little part. In this nature there is no side to be taken, therefore this is liberated from the ends of all the 8 paths. Whatever you do, everything is naturally self-liberated. There is nothing to look for and nothing to find, and there is no certain action. Therefore now you can live without worry, for you have realized the open space of your mind. Deciding to practice without practicing. When you have fully understood the natural state, then all doubts are stopped. A qualm, surely if everyone who exists acts without action, then whatever practices are done in the lower 8 paths must be without purpose. The Dzogchen reply is that everything that is practiced in those paths is made up by thoughts, and their practitioners never achieve the stage of acting without action, without thoughts. Dzogchen never pursues them, but all their achievements, like Sambhogakaya or Dharmakaya, or purification or knowledge, are naturally present in Dzogchen Buddhahood. The reason for this is that all existing things are like illusions coming from the natural state. Therefore there is not any misview, as everything is liberated into the natural state. Commentary. Lopon comments, why do they criticize this view? It is because all these schools, even the tantric schools, depend on visualization, body posture, breathing, etc. Quote from the same text. The ways of the 8 practices are outshone like the stars are outshone by the rising sun. Dzogchen does not need a plan to achieve Buddhahood. Everything comes from remaining in the natural state, to spontaneously exist. Therefore, to the nature of the Dzogchen view, there is nothing to do with acting. Day and night remain in the natural state without any action, even planning or thinking, no expecting, no reciting, no visualizing, even during sleep. So the practitioner practices days, months, and years without distraction in the natural state. All the 4 actions are carried out without distraction. The practitioner is contemplation. Everything is the unstoppable action. Whatever the practitioner experiences, whatever comes is an experience for the practice, happiness, bliss, or whatever. He or she does not even care if the thoughts are racing. There is no hope or path. so thoughts are left as they are. That is the method of practice. Sometimes there are raging emotions, like anger or sorrow or whatever, and the practitioner does not care. They are just left as they are. This is the teaching. Whether the practitioner collects merits or sins does not matter. Things are left just as they are, not far away from the natural state. The practitioner leaves mind no trace. There is no base of keeping past actions. Commentary. Lopon comments that in a horse race, the horse has no time to look at the ground and pick flowers or grass. In the same way, when you practice the natural state, all thoughts and activities are naturally liberated into the natural state without plans or actions. Lopon comments that while the practitioner is not distracted but is continuously in the natural state, it is as if he or she is in space. Whatever is done, no traces are left behind. As we said, whether you paint black or white on space, nothing remains. The base that keeps the traces is lost, it is empty. Of course, this only applies to a practitioner who has achieved continuous contemplation. That is the practice of the Dzogchen. There is no trying to practice antidotes or removing negativities. That is the fruit, and not to seek antidotes. That is the commitment. Everything is to be left as it is. There is no measure of being understood or not understood. That is the sign of the practitioner's knowledge. Commentary. For other people who still grasp their karmic traces, this does not apply. When the Lopon first came to Swayambhu in Nepal in 1944, he met some Tibetans with whom he traveled for some days. One man was a former monk who had a wife and children and was carrying a huge load of luggage on his back. When he was a monk, he had met Dega Rinpoche, a famous Dzogchenpa in the mountains, and consequently he gave up his robes because he felt he was too tied up with the Vinaya vows. But Lopon pointed out that he was equally tied up with his children. The man replied that in Dzogchen it is said that it does not matter what you do, so he was free to do anything, and that was okay. But this is a complete misunderstanding of Dzogchen. The teachings only apply when you are totally absorbed in the natural state. It depends on your practice, and only you can judge. So it is a paradox that beginners must take actions even though the ultimate Dzogchen view has no action. The beginner must take a very strong action, a decision, otherwise there will be doubt and hesitancy. All the preparatory methods help us realize the natural state, but once it is seen and understood, then the situation is different. The experienced Dzogchenpa would not need to do preparatory practices at all. Lopon comments that this means not hesitating or meditating, and this is why many Buddhist masters criticized Dzogchen. For example, Tsongkhapa asserted that the natural state in Dzogchen is just like being unconscious. Far from that, this awareness is very bright and clear, but the Indian commentators on the Prajnaparamita, such as Nagarjuna, did not understand this awareness that is present after thoughts have stopped. They do recognize something similar, the undiluted direct cognition of shunyata, void. This cognition is inseparable from its object and undiluted, but it is not the same. Another criticism might be put in this way. You say that the Dzogchen view is not limited, yet here you say no action is your view. Is this not a contradiction? The answer to this lies in non-action. From the Dzogchen view, this term means no action. But from the practitioner's point of view, this is not a choice. One just does what comes next in the natural state. But to explain it, a term must be used. Whether it is to look or not to look, to act or not to act, everything is self-liberated. Therefore, there is no missed view or right view. I do not care. Commentary. It may seem the same because here the object is shunyata and the subject is direct cognition, but the difference is that this cognition is the fruit of practice by thought. First you practice, and then you have the experience. You develop it until the thoughts gradually diminish and the subject becomes more and more clear. Finally, the object is perceived directly, so it is a result of thought. Even if there is a gulf in the progression to the final stage of direct cognition, the connection between thought and direct cognition cannot be denied. If there was no link between the two, then nothing could bridge it. But from the Dzogchen point of view, the nature is already connected. It is not linked with thoughts because it is already there. It has already been there. It is not invented. Whatever is in you, that you can realize. Purification is needed for Dzogchen, however. That is the reason for the preliminary practices. It is a great error to try to apply these teachings without this period of preparation. You must always understand that the perspective of any comment, be it about the natural state or the individual. Otherwise, you fall into nihilism. Lopon comments that in the philosophical background to Dzogchen there are various mistaken views which are described in the Namdak, a major text on the philosophy of Dzogchen taught at Dolanji. The view that you must meditate or that you must not meditate, that there is no source of existence or that samsara has no end, the view that Dzogchen must be learnt in order to know it or that Dzogchen has no connection with the mind, the view that it has nothing to do with anything else or that the Dzogchen view is not certain, anything goes, that everything is nothing so you can do whatever you like, or that the view says that everything is faultless. These are the ignorant views. Better views, but still mistaken, are Kadag, that the view is pure from the beginning, Lundrub, which means that everything spontaneously exists, that the view is not certain, so it can be this or that, or that the real nature state is nature and reflections. These are all partially complete views. Some of the masters of Dzogchen introduce the view directly with the crystal or mirror. Some say you must go to a quiet place to meditate. Some say you must have hardship, and others that you must be a beggar. Some of the masters say that you must give up all your property and go and live in a cemetery or in the mountains. Some say go now and live as a madman. Some say don't desire anything, go and live as a small child. Others say you must live the opposite of what they teach. Some say you should avoid objects that cause anger and desire and don't expect to have a good reputation. Others say whether people say good or bad things about you, you should not care. These are the sayings of the Dzogchen masters. But according to this system, we don't accept any teachings of theirs. We don't think that their teachings are either good or bad. We don't care. Why? Because we are completely outside of the judgment of their points. There is no point in arguing or judging. We don't care. Like the elephant, if he is thirsty, no one can stop him from going to the water. All these different views have been bounded by thought and so are grasping. This process has the purpose of bringing out doubts to clarify them, like washing stains from a cloth so that one sees the material clearly. Book 3. The Practice of Togil. The Togil section has two parts. First, there is the explanation of why Togil is higher than Trekcho. Then there is the teaching of the Togil path. First, in the text Yetri, there are 10 points to distinguish Trekcho from Togil. Here is a summary in 7 points. The first is the ways of purifying grasping. In Trekcho, all the mountains, rocks, and countries have to be thought of as illusions. Otherwise, this teaching cannot liberate directly on its own. Togil, however, depends on the 5 lights by which all the objects of existence are completely liberated into light. Commentary. Lopon comments that the distractions are being made between the two techniques in order to clarify them in relation to one another, and not to suggest that either can work on its own. Without the fundamental practice of the Trekcho view, the Togil will have no meaning, although it will work. Without Trekcho, the foundation is not safe for Togil. Many people are keen to do dark retreats straight away, but without Trekcho there is no base for the visions to come. If you hope to see strange things, you can, but it will have no meaning. This is explained below. Quote from the Yetri, "It is originally purified, there is no grasping, the nature is called the great Buddhahood." The second point is in the matter of the self-division of the body. In Treksho, the body cannot become the light body, it can only be made to disappear to the level of the atoms. There are many systems to make the physical body disappear, such as the temporary illusory body. Even in the practice of shamatha, the physical body can disappear, but they are not true or final. Tebgel, however, Togel, however, completely transform the physical body into pure light. If you don't achieve the rainbow body, then you do not achieve the final body. Likewise, if you do not achieve the great rainbow body, you have not achieved the final Buddhahood. In Togel, all your physical body and the objects that you share go into the rainbow body. Commentary. Lopon comments that this refers to the body becoming so subtle that you cannot see it with the naked eye, as if it transforms into very fine particles. There are many other results of practice in the other traditions. In Mahamudra, for example, the body disappears and the illusory body is realized. It is not that the physical becomes the illusory body. The physical body dies, as in the normal case, but the mind realizes the illusory body. Lopon comments that just as the karmic causes make the world of experience, each individual person has his or her share of this common vision. For example, a person, say a man called John, is part of the common vision, but his mother will see him as her son, and his wife will see him as her husband. That is their personal share. So along with the physical body, there is a person's share that goes into the body of light in the final transformation. The body of light is all that is left after all karmic vision is purified. The entire body goes into light, but not the material things and property. They remain part of the common karmic vision. If one becomes a rainbow body, one's light body has no defects. It is completely purified, and karmic causes have completely stopped. Previously, one practiced bodhicitta, now one has received the result. So until samsara is finished, one will help sentient beings. Commentary. When a man dies, he leaves behind possessions, furniture, and houses, but the vision that this is mine or that is mine dies with him. No one will think this is mine of one of his former possessions unless it has been given to her or she buys it. So karmic links are everything, but there are two aspects. But the public side and the personal side. This is not like the Hinayana view, however, in which it is believed that after the Buddha showed the parinirvana, there were no traces left, for he had completely gone, non-existent. That is the final body of the Dharmakaya, permanent because it is non-manifest. The rainbow body is the manifest body of Buddhahood, the Sambhogakaya form, in which all the body, speech, and mind are completely purified of all karmic traces. As a Sambhogakaya form, this body is impermanent, although someone who has achieved the Jalu realizes all three kayas of the Buddhas. The Dharmakaya can be seen only by the Buddhas. The Sambhogakaya can be seen by the high bodhisattvas, and the Nirmanakaya form can be seen by ordinary beings, but only if they have the karmic causes to do so. All manifest bodies are impermanent. Even the Dharmakaya has two forms, the wisdom Dharmakaya, the awareness side, which is impermanent, and the nature Dharmakaya, the empty side, which is permanent. The unmanifest Dharmakaya cannot help beings, but its manifest aspect, the Sambhogakaya form, does so due to the everlasting bodhicitta, such is the union of clarity and emptiness. When you have purified all the defilements, your mind is called the Dharmakaya, and your body is called the Sambhogakaya. At the same time, you have emanated teachings to all beings, that is called Nirmanakaya. Generally, we say that Dharmakaya is permanent, but the Kayas are impermanent. But here the Dharmakaya has two divisions. Quote from the Yetri. The visions of the five aggregates, skandhas, are not removed but are purified into self-vision. The third point, the matter of purifying consciousness in Treksho, you only see emptiness, but do not see the pure light visions, so the diluted vision cannot be removed or purified. You have to think that it is a kadag, or pure from the beginning, but it does not appear that way. It is therefore always linked with ignorance, and the visions are not completely pure. For this reason one can be easily distracted, and it is difficult to achieve liberation. In the Togel, however, you use methods for understanding illusion directly, so it makes the achieving of self-liberation rapid. After self-liberation, diluted vision does not occur, and therefore does not cause distraction. The visions of Togel lead very directly to understanding. Quote from the Yetri, there are 8 objects of the 8 consciousnesses, 5 senses with emotion, mind, and kunji. They are the self-vision dakinis, and they spontaneously exist without any searching. Therefore this is called the great vision owner of wisdom. Fourth, the method to help others from the viewpoint that nothing exists inherently. The natural state spontaneously exists as sounds, rays, and lights, and those all appear. Commentary. We say that the Buddha's knowledge is purified, but that it is impermanent. What is permanent is the nature of emptiness. The Buddha's mind is not permanent. Lopon comments that in the Treksho it is not easy to make pure visions, but in Togel one experiences the source of visions and their nature and how they are liberated. Therefore it is easier to purify all common objects and subjects. Treksho is like reading a description of the view instead of seeing the view itself. By the method of Togel you see this, and so everything becomes rapidly purified. In Treksho, however, there is no direct method to see this. Treksho is also gradual, it takes a long time. However, Togel is very direct, and by itself can purify so that you can help other beings very quickly. Quote from the same text. All the visions come from themselves and are seen by themselves. Everything is the reflection from itself. There are no objects inherently. Everything is the great vision. Therefore there is no way to help others. Question. If you realize that everything is your own vision, then how can you help other beings? What is the answer? The answer is that you can help them because they are self-vision. Beings are also self-vision. Inherently helping them is not possible. Fifth, the matter is not searching for fruit. All of these matters are without any searching for fruit. During the Treksho time, all the visions are inherent vision, even though you understand that they have no inherent existence. Togel allows the development of special vision that mixes with the normal vision, so that it easily turns into the vision of reality. It is a quick and practical path to develop the self-liberated vision. Nor do you need to pray anymore. It is sometimes said that you only Commentary. It is sometimes said that you only perceive your own karma. Lopon comments that if you stop to help beings, that would imply that other beings are inherently real, but if you believe this, you cannot help others in actuality. Helping beings is part of your own self-vision within the natural state of spontaneous self-arising. Lopon comments that visions will appear as inherently existent in Treksho, even though you understand fully that they are all reflections that come from the natural state. So in Treksho the visions do not change. They are the ordinary visions we all experience. You understand and they are self-liberated, but the visions do not change.